Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of Into the Blue Zone. On today's morning show, I have special guest and best friend Joshua Motter.
Whoop whoop.
Josh, glad we're able to fit it in on the morning before you fly home. And just perfect timing. It's been a perfect trip.
Yeah, I've been out here for 2 weeks and we've procrastinated like only the way we know how.
Yeah, like
Squeezing it in with an hour.
last round, taking you down to the airport shortly here. You've been out here for a couple weeks, so we're going to kind of chop through the podcast without it being too rushed because we had some topics in mind and the goal is to kind of cater to the listeners. For all you listening and watching on Facebook, YouTube Live and Instagram Live, thank you for tuning in. The goal is to keep the show sponsorship free. It is unscripted and unedited. And with Josh here, I don't really need to do much research considering I lived with you the last 3 or 4 years when you were out here in San Diego and a couple floors below you when we went to High Point University together. So not much research needed to be done.
What's it been, like 13 years? We met in what, 08?
Yeah, so
Ish?
for you guys listening and watching, Josh is from Baltimore, Maryland. Shout out to the Ravens as he's wearing a Ravens shirt.
Why be less when you could be more?
And just huge Ravens fan, huge Be More guy, and I'm a big Philly guy, so we clicked pretty immediately when we met in college back in 08.
Yeah, it was 08, yeah.
08, 13 years.
Crazy.
It's been a great 13 years, and now we get to throw some thoughts in a time capsule that we could look back on, and it's going to be exciting at some point when we get older. Hey, remember we did this? And
It already is, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, life changes and you move away, and I'm in Houston now, and we talk all the time, FaceTime all the time, but a little bit different, and those stories still flow all the time. And, you know, what you've been doing, what you've been up to, but remember when we did this and that. And so I will say, just quick little gripe here, I've been boys with Skyler for 13 years and he's got this fancy setup for his mic and I've got the whole like old school hold it to the mouth joint here. But
Yeah, I mean, I have nicer headphones too. That's what happens when it's your show, I guess. I mean, the fact that you have a nice mic and a nice headphone just goes to show how high our standards are. You know, you gotta find ways to nitpick. That's just how we are too. Like, you know, we met in college at High Point University. We ended up being in the same fraternity and just complete brothers and spent a ton of time together. And a lot of our commonalities are just kind of ragging on each other in a sarcastic way. And I can't help it a lot of times. And I'm very straightforward and blunt. And it seems to be a good fit for you too.
Always, yeah. I mean, with that said, also the other side is appreciation, right? I've been here for 2 weeks and stayed, had my own room and, you know, cooked some meals, went out to a bunch of meals, but had a place to stay, had an e-bike to ride on, had a surfboard to ride on, had an outdoor shower.
Had golf clubs too. You could have just used my spare set the way you were hitting them.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, you did pop out
some ups and downs.
Yeah, golf's such a challenging sport, and you popped out, I think, 1 or 2 strokes higher than me. I think I shot like a 95, and you shot a 96 or 97, and something like that.
93, 94.
93, 94 from the back tee box at Encinitas Ranch. So,
yeah,
I mean, we only played twice, and one round wasn't so hot for either one of us,
yeah,
scoring-wise, and the other round was fun. So, that's kind of our backstory without elaborating too much. And let's get into the topics. You kind of had a topic on your mind. I added one, and then you got one.
I've got a surprise one. Do we start with the surprise topic? Let's start with the surprise.
Yeah, I mean, your show.
So yeah, let's do it.
Your episode.
So yeah, start with positioning, the concept of positioning. So it came up a couple of times. That's why it was a surprise. Came up a couple of times in various activities that we just described, golf, surfing, and kind of got me thinking a little bit over the course of the last week of positioning just overall in life. So, you know, so much of life in general is done before the real activity, right? Setting yourself up, positioning yourself to actually be successful. So like simplicity on the golf course, you don't just go up there and hack it, right? A lot of a pre-swing goes into where are you relative to the ball, where are the positions of your hands, right? Your feet, angles, and the swing is kind of the culmination of all of that positioning and planning on the front end. And, you know, we talked about it on the surfboard too, like, oh, you're too far up, you're too far back, right? Setting yourself up on the surfboard the right way, actually catching the wave is kind of the finished product, but the positioning is really the key there. So like in life in general, positioning is key, right? Putting yourself around the right people, positioning yourself to be successful, and surrounding yourself with, you know, people like you, and you know, going semi-plant-based over here, but full plant-based on the other side, like positioning yourself in a way that you're going to be successful later in life, whether it's activities, whether it's food, whether it's, you know, women, just life in general, family. I just thought it was kind of a cool thought. Yeah, hit me with a response.
I'm letting it sink in a little bit before trying to figure out how to go off of the activity itself and then kind of relating positioning.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was
in sports, it's pretty obvious. There's angles, there's reads, and there's tendencies, and there's patterns in all sports, and it's kind of like that in life. And I think the word positioning is maybe a little uncommon when talked about in reference to maybe success.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think surfboard is, we surfed, I think, more than golfing this trip. At least we went out like 3 times, and
3 or 4 times.
Positioning's huge in surfing. You
Yeah.
know, that's a common word. Position yourself on the wave, and if you're not in the right spot, you're nosediving, pulling up,
Yep.
not catching it, wasting energy. And
I did a lot of that.
And golf, another thing we did, and kind of 2 activities that I've been doing a lot in San Diego. Yeah, the positioning your hands, your stance, that's super key. I think surrounding yourself with people you want to aspire to be, or that you really like being around, is, yeah, positioning yourself, you know, in a social setting for success. So
yeah, I mean, even at work, right? Positioning, well, yours is more athletic than mine is, but positioning, putting yourself in a position to be successful in the workplace, right? Making sure that you've got the right team in place, right? I do accounting advisory and transaction advisory, and making sure that you've got the right mix, the leverage ratio, that your team is positioned for success, setting your team up the right way, setting up the client in a way that they're going to be positioned for success. I just think that, you know, it's not, you kind of touched on it, it's not really a conscious thought a lot of times, but maybe it should be a little bit more conscious in how you're positioning yourself throughout the day and kind of throughout life. But
yeah, I kind of feel like that's like a discipline, not flashy, habitual routine.
Yeah.
I mean, we were watching Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah.
And you or Jay were saying like his pre-shot routine's super annoying.
It's quirky.
And, you know, a lot of golfers, going back to golf one more time, do something to position themselves so their minds are free when they're hitting the ball. And I know when I am disciplined doing that before I hit the ball, I feel like it's a better swing, or my thoughts are clear. And yeah, I mean, it's a good surprise. You caught me off guard with positioning.
I knew I would.
Football, I think football is like, to me, it's like a team aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, there's individual positioning for the thing, and then in sports, it's like you have a position. In volleyball, you have a position, and like that's the noun, as opposed to kind of more the description of setting yourself up for the action. So in like a team sport, I mean, each guy has their position, and then you have to do your job, and you have to position yourself within your position.
Yeah. Well, and then you've got, it's like positions on positions on positions. Like, you've got each individual player as a position. The coach makes sure that everybody's in the right position. you go a step higher and you've got organizationally, are we in the right position to succeed over a longer term period, right? You've got individual play, game, season, decade, whatever, right? So you've got different people that are positioning you in different ways to make sure you're successful in the short term, medium term, long term. I don't know. I thought it was kind of an interesting one. It just kind of hit my head, and I thought it was cool. But football's a great example, right? You prepare and position yourself to be successful for 6 days, and then the finished product that we all watch is 3 hours. But countless hours have gone into making sure that players are in the right position to succeed, and you're prepared for 3 hours worth of work. It's it's a lot of success comes on that pre-positioning standpoint, and making sure that again, I'll throw it back to my work, so we're not just only talking about sports here, but if I have a team of 5 people and some are going to be at various experience levels, making sure that I've got the staff positioned well with the senior, and everybody's expectations are known and set, so that when the actual work is getting done, everybody's in a position to be successful. So I think it's just applicable to a lot of areas of life, and I thought it was just kind of funny when I was thinking about it randomly out on a wave.
So, yeah, I mean, it directly correlates with surfing.
Yeah. I
would say most often, compared to some of the things we've done and the way we're referencing it in a workplace, I think we should share with the listeners the 6 Ps. So we were in the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity, and you mentioned the word prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the 6 Ps has resonated with me to build good habits, and
proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yeah.
Or we could say proper positioning prevents piss poor performance.
Say proper planning prevents piss poor performance, thus positioning yourself in the right place for success.
Right. We probably should have positioned this podcast a day or 2 ago.
Yeah, well, I thought we missed out on some good material.
Yeah.
After some drinks and a cold tub. We went to your friend Emma's last night in Poway. Shout out to Emma.
Yeah, appreciate you,
Thanks
Emma.
for having dinner. And her hot tub never got hot. And
it was warm.
It was lukewarm. And then we came home and we started talking about executive orders that Biden's doing and actual juicy material.
Yeah.
And, it's now thinking about the podcast and good material. It's I need to get people mic'd up all the time.
Yeah.
We
missed an opportunity with Evan, so buddy of mine that I've known since I was 3. He was 9. Shout out to Evan. He was over, and Jay Cromp was over. I've known him since I was 17. So a lot of people that I've known for decades at this point, which is crazy because we're not really that old. But yeah, we missed a couple of opportunities for some good ones. So Evan's a photographer, and I thought that might have been a good one for the surprise of positioning, right? To get him, because photography is another great one where it's hey, put yourself in a position where, the sun's here or whatever, right? He's going to speak.
You should take your own advice more often. And I feel like I should do that to myself too. You could have announced this topic, hey, let's do a podcast just on positioning since Evan's here.
Yeah, it's true.
And that would have been amazing. So Evan, maybe we'll do something on positioning.
Yeah, Evan, next time you're in San Diego, let me know. I'll make the return trip. Or everybody could just meet in Houston.
For those who listen to an episode on self-care on Instagram, it's going to be published. Tonight I am going to the last sound healing event in Encinitas. The sound healing event is an 1.5 long, and it is so relaxing. Essentially, it's nap time at 6:30 to 8 p.m. And they've been doing it for the last month and a half. And I'm looking forward to capitalizing on some self-care. So I did a episode with my chiropractor, and I totally blanked on the self-care through sound healing that I've been doing. I didn't mention it at all.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed I didn't get to do it. But.
Yeah, in the self-care episode that me and Howard Short did, and anyways, just for those listening, I'm excited to go to Sound Healing tonight because it's the last one of the summer. And
Yeah, what's the name of the place?
Seaside Community Center,
Yeah.
in between Santa Fe Drive and Birmingham, in I guess Cardiff or Encinitas, California. So
And
that'll be
who's the main instructor? Let's just give just in case anybody's
yeah.
listening and wants to go, right?
yeah. They've had like a woman who kind of intros, and then it's donation based, and it's basically to help out poverty in Nepal. And the gentleman named Deep guides you through a little meditation, and then it's just volunteers, like 8 to 10 volunteers with all the instruments you could think about. I mean, there's a gong that's probably 8 feet in diameter, like it's massive.
Oh wow.
And there's sound bowls, and there's didgeridoos, and there's rain sticks. Really like advanced sound healing.
What's a didgeridoo?
A didgeridoo. I'm gonna have to.
Next podcast, you've got to bring one on so people can actually see what it is.
They're really hard to play. You actually hear the guy breathing through his nose because it's just one constant long blowing of vibrations.
Oh wow.
And then he blows, and you hear him very loudly breathing through his nose so he can keep the one long vibration going. And it's like, it's pretty wild.
That sounds sweet.
It's very relaxing, and I'm definitely not getting my second vaccination today because that would be bad timing. I would be positioning myself
to not be relaxed.
To not be relaxed, exactly, and
Yeah.
feel like crap. So I'm pushing the second vaccine shot back a couple days when it makes the most sense.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, let's go to topic number 2.
Yeah.
Because I posted, we're going to talk about loyalty and no fear. I think those are solid topics, and what resonates with you with loyalty, I know coming from the Philadelphia sports culture, I think sports fanatics and Philadelphia is a super loyal town, similar to, Baltimore Ravens fans and obviously the DC area, where living out here, I don't sense the loyalty to a certain extent with West Coast San Diego Padres. Maybe it's just too many activities. And
yeah.
What?
Yeah. So I wasn't actually planning on wearing the Ravens shirt, but for the people at home, I'll throw it out there. No, I mean, loyalty to Baltimore sports in general. I have to throw the Orioles in there too, unfortunately, but they've been bad for so long. It becomes challenging, right? And Ravens are a little bit easier to root for. Really good organization, well run, almost always ready to make the playoffs and potentially contend for a championship. And they're constantly drafting well, playing well, well run organization. So it's a little easier to be loyal. But loyalty has to weather those storms through the ups and the downs, right? Whether it's a friendship where you're in the middle of an argument or a fight or whatever, you kind of weather that storm and hopefully that loyalty and that trust, respect, whatever, depends on whether you're talking about a relationship or a team. But that loyalty oftentimes will carry you through some of those ups and downs, right? You kind of feel it Sunday to Sunday. It's like, oh man, the rest of my day's ruined. The Ravens lost. But, you also hit that high note where it's like, yeah, the Ravens won. The rest of my Sunday's great.
I think on a different scale, branching off from the sports theme, marriage. I mean, my parents are still together, and I don't know if that's lucky or fortunate. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And marriage, my dad would say, is the hardest thing in life. And that's maybe the extreme loyal concept in our civilization, where we're just one person and, you break that loyalty, you cheat on someone, you can't get over it, and then divorce rates go up and your parents are divorced. So I think the loyalty with marriage...
For the record, not because they cheated on each other. But
no, I did not want to...
No. Yeah.
It's just like it's kind of common because it's so challenging to, have such a relationship so intertwined where we don't have that relationship with the players.
Yeah.
Or the fans, where, I mean, obviously,
let's
very different.
Yeah, we can shift away from the sports one, because I think loyalty in people and being loyal to friends, family, faith, right? Those things carry a little bit more weight than just loyalty to the Ravens or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, the way you phrase that, I think, is pretty interesting. Your dad said it's like one of the hardest things in life is being married and marriage in general. And I guess, part of that is, I think human beings by their nature probably have a tendency to inherently be selfish, whether it's intentional or not, right? You're living life, but you're living your own life. And so inherently you're probably going to lean towards, selfish actions. And being married, you have to kind of put that away, and you're more or less living your life, but also responsible for another life. And then you have kids, and then you're responsible for the happiness of multiple people, and putting other people's, not responsible for the happiness, that's not probably the way I meant it, but responsible for the lives of others, right, to some degree, and putting other people's feelings and needs ahead of your own on a constant basis. Like, you feel what I'm saying? I think
I think loyal to yourself and who you are, and it takes time. I am still figuring out who I am in certain aspects.
Yeah.
And I think some people figure it out sooner than others.
Yep.
Just like some people are childhood sweethearts and get married at 21 as opposed to 31 or 41.
Yep.
And
Texas,
not
that's
just
a lot more common.
Yeah, not just relationship stuff, just figuring out like, hey, I like working out.
Yeah.
And, I like this type of workout as opposed to this.
Mm-hmm.
And like being loyal to yourself. And then you touched on it a little bit ago, faith. I know people who are loyal to Jesus and God, a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's how they live their life. I mean, selfishly they'll block or shape how they want to live day to day because of their loyalty to a higher being.
Yep.
And there's countries like that. There's a lot of things that once you figure out your allegiances, you then start like, okay, no, this is like my purpose or my passion or my role in life.
Mm-hmm.
And
your vocation.
Yeah, you get that buy-in, and then you meet the like-minded people.
Yeah.
For me, it's like the sound healing. I met some cool people that I seem to associate with, and I actually ran into a guy at the bar in Encinitas at Shelter. I've met like 3 people there.
Yeah.
And he gave me a beer. And Trevor, I don't know if I'll see you tonight. I've only met a couple people.
Yeah.
And to see someone at the bar, it's like, oh, we're kind of like-minded. We like relaxing and, enjoying the life, not being stressed. And then we like to go out. And I thought that was kind of random.
It is.
Yeah, like there's a couple people I met.
Was I there? Where was I?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question.
Yeah. I was bouncing around.
Yeah, you making the environment yours. We went out to an art show this past weekend.
It was called the
And
Rabbit.
what's
Rabbit
today's
Alley?
date for time references here? August 30th?
Yeah.
Rent's due tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
It's all about rent. And it's August 30th, 2021, and we went out to Rabbit Alley Art Show.
You don't have it?
And Graham was the artist, and Eric Gilmer invited me. And then you were just kind of mingling and positioning yourself up for a fun night out, and we all had fun. And I think loyalty to friends, what do you relate to the most when I say loyalty?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, but yeah, I think when I inherently think loyalty, I mean, it was an interesting curveball to say loyal to yourself, but loyalty to friends is the first thing that comes to my mind, and I think it's kind of evolved over time a little bit. Grew up in Baltimore and had a really cool family. Got my brother Jake Motter, who has been my right hand guy forever. And one of the hardest things I ever did, really, also very selfish, but, something that has really put my life into a completely different space, was moving to San Diego, California, all the way across the country, but leaving my brother and my dad. Really hard to do. I don't know if you felt that way when you moved, but like I cried when I moved. Like, it was sad but happy at the same time, but still finding a way to be loyal to my brother and make sure that our relationship continues to flourish and blossom, and like that's my guy. And then I moved out here with Justin Crompton, Evan Bracken, who I've mentioned both of these guys earlier already. Evan is a photographer, flew from LA all the way to Baltimore just to do the drive with me. So like that loyalty that we have to each other, he flew across the country and we rode out, and these friends that we've got, like I've known him for 30 years. I've known you for 13. I've known Jay for 14, 15.
You're super fortunate, as am I, to have those relationships. A lot of people aren't as fortunate to have like so many strong relationships that you move to another coast and do drives with, come down for a weekend when you're in town. And
then I moved from here to Houston, had to start kind of completely over, and I've met a couple people down there, my boy Parker White and John Badula, guys that I hang out with all the time, that I'm loyal to now. And
do you think if you were more loyal, not loyal, but like aware of what you want more often, which I think you are, do you think that would put yourself in a different light with friends and relationships with ladies?
I'm pretty self-aware, but I guess we could always be more self-aware. I think with me, my mind gets very racy.
Yeah.
And I'm like kind of all over the place sometimes. It's like,
do you think you cater to your friends from overextension of loyalty when you're with them? Not that it's a bad thing.
Sometimes.
Because you're lucky to have those relationships.
Sometimes, but I think that extending yourself and being a part of other people's lives is why these people are so loyal to me in return.
Yeah.
So
the investment. You're seeing return on investment in your friendships by people wanting to be around you, and that's what makes the trip out here fun. Like, we can hang out all the time, and then you have your other best friends come into town, and it makes the trip way more enjoyable. It's a good thing.
I came out here, had a room to stay in for as long as I wanted, pretty much. And like, I didn't have a car. You're driving me 30 minutes each way, an hour trip for you, and never complained about it and don't expect anything in return. That's, small actions that go a long way towards a loyal relationship and a deep lasting bond that'll go on forever, right? It's pretty cool when you think about it, right? We met at some probably random frat party or wherever. Actually, it was outside. It was a little more intimate, right? We met
probably by the pool during the summertime get together.
Yeah.
And then,
but to think that at that time you have no real expectations, and you certainly weren't loyal to me at that time, and I wasn't to you, right? We're just getting to know each other and become friends, and that's evolved pretty significantly over time, right? It's kind of cool how that stuff evolves, but I think a lot of it is extending yourself and being selfless in as many ways as you possibly can. But, you guys are driving all over the map to cater to me and making sure I get to see all these other people that, are really good friends of mine. I was originally coming out for Justine and Simon's wedding. And I was like, I'm going to stay for a couple weeks, making sure that I extend, but don't overextend. And making sure we continue to harvest those relationships, right?
Yeah, let's keep going on the topic of relationships, and then I want to kind of make a turn here and stay on the topic of loyalty. So we've mentioned this word boundaries kind of back and forth as I've talked about it with a friend, and I think it's important for us to talk about it for the listeners and for ourselves and for our own kind of mental clarity.
Yeah.
Like, boundaries are, I think, more important with lesser relationships. And for us, we're meeting newer people more often.
Mm-hmm.
I think overextending yourself, being loyal to those relationships that are so fruitful that in our present life, I mean, it's why we're living,
Yeah.
to travel and see these people. Like, you don't need so many boundaries or limitations on like time spent, money spent, and then as you start to meet like more outer circle people
Mm-hmm.
and your network grows, you have to then maybe adjust your loyalty or selflessness, and like, is this someone that's worth this trip?
Right.
And it becomes tricky because everyone's kind of like got their guard up, and then you meet someone who you click with, and even still it's like, well, I'm not childhood friends with this person, I didn't go to college with this person,
Yeah.
I'm not having intimate relationship with this person. Like,
I see what you're saying. I mean, I'll even equate it kind of to this trip. So I'm here for 2 weeks, and there's, you know, a list of people that I wanted to see when I was out here, and got to see just about all of them, which was fantastic. But some people I saw for a day or a drink or 2 drinks, and then other people I saw 10 times or 15 times, or spent all the time I could possibly spend with those people, like yourself and what have you, right? So it's making sure you don't overextend in that way. And if somebody was like, hey, let's go do this or that, not always saying yes, not feeling the obligation to say yes. If it's like, hey, I saw you yesterday, I think we're probably good, because I only have so much time while I'm here.
yeah, the balancing act. We talked a little bit about with Jay's wife, Chantal,
Mm-hmm.
finding balance was the theme, and just balancing your vacation when you're here for 2 weeks of, you know,
It's a lot of time, but it's not all.
I was
all
talking to a neighbor, yeah, it's not like we live in a world of checks and balances, as he said. To get to get a really good vacation for 2 weeks, you've been on vacation quite a bit this summer,
Mm-hmm.
to feel like it was really good and you want to come back, you have to make those decisions and choices. And
Right.
it's like, if you were out here for a weekend, we would do this, and this, and you would see 1 or 2 people.
Right.
And like, you give yourself this time to have more fun, and then also it's like more choices.
Mm-hmm.
And prioritizing, well, who gets the drink and then who gets the weekend. And
Yeah.
it's not like it's all planned for a guy as on top of it and wired as sharp as you are. It's
Yeah.
just inevitably like inside you to kind of think like that,
Yeah.
as it is with me. And probably to a fault, I am like trying to be a host and like, did I do a good job for you and
Yes.
Jay and Evan? And like, you know, 2 weeks we were talking about what to do, this, that, taking off work. And it's
So,
just being in communication and getting on the same page, and then catching the vibe of like, hey, like this weekend this and the next weekend that, like,
and also having a couple of
Yeah.
unplanned moments and just kind of
Yeah.
going with the flow, right?
yeah. So
Interesting though, you said boundaries for almost like outer level friends, kind of more or less acquaintances or what have you. I think it's also important to set boundaries with the people that are closest to you, because, you know, as much as they love you and you love them, there's definitely going to be moments or situations where they might expect more than what you're actually able to give, and it's probably harder to say no to somebody you love like that. But I think setting boundaries from that level is also important, right? Whether it's, Josh, I don't want you to stay for 2 weeks, dude. You get a week out here and then you got to go. Like, this is my space and whatever. Right? Like, that's an example.
yeah, I don't have that experience right now, being single out of a relationship, I would say, and just not really having that much experience with a significant other.
Well, it could be anybody though. Like, I just,
Yeah.
you know, but setting boundaries with people that you love as well,
Yeah.
and making sure that you're not always giving or giving more than what you have to give. Setting those boundaries can be important just for your overall mental health.
Yeah, and then expressing it and communicating it is
Yeah.
kind of the endless challenge.
The endless challenge.
Yeah.
Communication is key.
Yeah, we're not birds, even though I think of my backyard as a nice bird's nest, plucking leaves out of it to make it nice for someone to come over and, wow, he takes such good care of the backyard. We're not birds and we're not snow leopards, where I think they don't ever like settle down with anyone, and they'll just have sex with a female for like a very, very short period of time, and then
Yeah, we're built for intimacy.
Keep moving. Yeah, that's, you know,
Like
you guys.
intimate moments, both like with people and like friends and relationships alike, right?
Yeah, so one more thing. I said I wanted to kind of take a turn here, and I mean, I would give myself an A+ for loyalty in the workforce. I've been at Wave Volleyball for 9 years, and we're about to have tryouts, and a lot of people seem to think that you could hop from one organization to another and climb this financial ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably can. And again, something I don't really know about, I haven't really experienced.
Yeah.
So I can't really attest to that theory. And it seems like that's a common thought. Like, I mean, you've been loyal, and like for me, not only is it like financial gains, it's like lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's enjoying my day to day, and I'm so lucky where my day to day is like
pretty sweet.
Pretty freaking sweet. And I think that stems from loyalty, and that like really hit hard when you brought up that topic. Like, I am super loyal to my bosses, and we've had, you know, interactions where, hey, we got to talk about it, and then at the same time, like, it'll work itself out, because at the end of the day, like, I'm there to help you out, and I'm doing it because I enjoy it, and I enjoy working for you. And they're like, well, go do your thing and go on your vacation, whatever.
Yeah, they're loyal in return.
And and it's been like a really good, I mean, it's a loving relationship when it gets to a certain stage. It's been super great, and I'm shout out to Wave Volleyball. Yeah. It's wild that I'm coaching club volleyball for a living, and I've kind of...
If you're in the Del Mar area, dude, hit up the wave.
Hit up the wave.
Ride the wave.
I'll solicit myself right now on my own podcast. You know, if you want a private lesson in volleyball, and I think the loyalty at work, it's been a cool experience.
And I completely agree. I mean, I was at Ernst & Young for 7 or 8 years, consecutively. Some in Baltimore, some in San Diego. And then when I moved to Houston, the transfer didn't really work out the right way. So I found another company, and I've been there for that entire time, almost 3 years now. But I think it goes both ways. I mean, loyalty, like EY is a tough one, because it's like 300,000 people. So you've got a company, but it's really about the people you work for every day.
Yeah.
So where we were yesterday at Emma's house, I mean, that was the partner that I worked for on almost every engagement. Somebody that I try to see every time I come to San Diego, like, loved working with her and for her. Just, you know, a great person. And then the people I work with now at Riveron are fantastic. Just like, I can't imagine having better bosses that allow me to succeed and give me the tools I need for success, and encourage me and have really propelled me to growth that I, you know, at a younger age, I don't know that I ever saw myself, you know, being where I am now financially and from an overall work product standpoint. I think it's really cool. And then your boss, I mean, Matt's like...
The Don of North County.
The Don of North County. Matty O.
Yeah, Matt's...
Like, when I first got here on Monday, we went and got lunch with him, and he came out and met us surfing for a little bit. And, you know, when we were in Amsterdam, you met my other boss, Zach McGinnis.
Yeah, it's great that we enjoy the people...
that we work
for. That's super rare. Yeah. Especially in either one, very different career paths. Like, I'm working with kids doing like a sport, and you're dealing with a lot of money and financial institutions and whatnot.
Yeah, helping companies go public and make
sure
that they
very different
operate
work.
More successfully.
We enjoy it because of the relationships that we've invested and that we've been invested in, and then our loyalty and their loyalty has created this kind of win-win, 50-50 back and forth. And
it's funny that you mentioned the people that hop around a lot. I mean, it definitely happens and is a way to potentially get more money. But I think a lot of that stems from the loyalty isn't going both ways. Like, if you work for an employer that isn't going to show you that same love and give back what you've given to them, it fosters like, okay, I'm constantly going to look for something else until I find that family, if you will. I mean, our company is so great. My company right now is so great. Like, we'll do happy hours and we'll get together and we'll celebrate different life events, birthdays and things like that. It's kind of been put on pause. It was put on pause for a little bit, and now it's starting to get back together. And I think it was so challenging during COVID to maintain that loyalty to everyone else when you're kind of going through this, I'm in a box by myself, not leaving the house. And so you kind of lose that culture and that feel of, okay, we really are a family, we're loyal to each other.
How did we get here?
Yeah.
Why did we enjoy our day-to-day work? Okay, right. We got to get back to our Friday volleyball sessions and going out to Mexican food or happy hours. And
and yours is different because if you're not showing up to work, you're not really working, right? Whereas I have, I have a laptop and I can do it from here, there, anywhere.
A lot of people experiencing that.
And right now we've got the flexibility to either work from home or to go into the office if you're vaccinated. So I like to go into the office probably 3 times a week or so, just, seeing people and getting that energy and feeding off of, the people that I care about. I'm like, yeah, this is why I work here. These people are great. Like, all right, let's go out for a drink after work, or, let's go get dinner, or let's plan something fun. I'm going to an Astros game, I think on the 10th of September with Zach, my boss. Just like, all right, let's talk about where you are and, your career and where you want to be and how we're going to get you there, right? He takes a vested interest in my successes. And, same in return. Like, I want to see him be super successful, and by me working every day, I'm helping him do that on a day-to-day basis, which is exactly what, this concept is about. Him wanting me to succeed and me helping him succeed on the front end. Like, it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Comedians have a funny way of telling the truth.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan, shout out to Joe. He's like, man, I don't know how I got famous. And we watched him a little bit on Netflix. And I remember him saying something like, if you're good at what you do and you like it, fucking tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Like, just do it. Like, You're so lucky. And I'm like, okay, balancing, like, I love coaching volleyball. Year after year, it becomes more work-like than the first maybe 5 years I did it. Still love it. And then I'm like, okay, like, this podcast, like, I thoroughly love it.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter who's on the show. And I'm like, okay, like, how could I keep... Well, obviously,
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
You're just attractive enough. Looks have nothing. The podcast itself, it's like, wow, this is really fun, and it takes some fearless action to get it going, and then give it a try and be vulnerable. And one guy on a podcast I listened to, it was called The Idea Machinist, and if you could just be an idea creator and just try your ideas without fear, at some point something's going to stick to the wall. And just keep going. So we're going to get into our last topic, no fear.
No fear.
So we kind of done with positioning and loyalty.
Yeah. And
again, you're listening to Into the Blue Zone, a plant-based production. This is a unscripted, unedited, sponsorship-free, commercials do suck podcast. And we're recording live in North County, Leucadia, Encinitas. And yeah, let's get into no fear, because it's like you have these ideas, you have these relationships, and then COVID's a perfect example. We were talking about like fear tactic. I mean, there's so many different realms. We could have a whole nother episode just on COVID and how it relates to fear and persuasion. So we won't go there because, at some point there's going to be an episode.
Heard enough about it too, right?
Yeah, at some point there's going to be an episode where I don't even mention it. And it's just...
I look forward to that day, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean...
Oh, we don't have to
It's kind of like you... Well, it's kind of like you... There's a sign that says you need to wear a mask to enter this place. Regardless of your vaccination status, it's like, are you afraid of getting kicked out of the place? Or are you just like, F it? And like, it's not like in a sense of like being a bad person for just the concept of like, oh man, I'm at a red light. It's 2 a.m. No one's around.
Yeah.
It's 2 a.m. No one's around. I'm at a red light. Do I run the light? I know I'm not supposed to. Have I been programmed by the government to wait here for 30 seconds? Absolutely.
Programmed to follow rules, yeah.
And then it's like, you know, those are some extreme examples. I think going up and meeting people.
Yeah.
For us single guys, it's like you go up, try to ask a woman out,
mm-hmm.
you get rejected.
Yeah.
Do you have like, okay, move on? Like you gave it a try, or you're like, and we've all gone through this, and females have gone through it, where it's like, man, I'm not swinging the bat again. I don't want to.
Fear of rejection.
Fear of rejection, fear of failure. And
so I think I'd rephrase it. Instead of saying no fear, I think fear is really healthy, and fear is a really healthy driver. I would say overcoming that fear is probably the way that I would phrase it. Like, for example, when I went skydiving the first time, I was shaking. Like, I was totally afraid, but I still fell out of that plane. So it's not that I didn't have fear. Fear totally existed. But overcoming it and proving to myself that you can overcome some of those obstacles and that fear drives. I think fear more or less is what keeps you alive. Like the fear of dying. And it's like, ooh, I shouldn't do this, right? And all right, I'm not going to go get in this, you know, I'm not going into this dangerous area or place or doing this, right? I'm not going to go to certain places in the Middle East right now for fear of death, right? But overcoming those fears, not necessarily that one, but overcoming fear, I think, is important, not necessarily not having fear.
I think you get exposed to different personalities as you start putting yourself out there more and more.
Yeah.
And there's like the different thought where I think that's a common approach to human thinking, like fear and embracing fear. Like fear is real.
Yeah.
And then like there's other people where it's like fear is not even a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We've created it.
Yeah.
Like it's like you create your own sickness. Like you create your own fear. Like and the fear of dying, you know, is like, well, I guess you could think nothing comes after, or like you live for eternity. Two different schools of thought. And like, okay, I mean, the people who like are totally fearless and have, I mean, how about the guy Alex Honnold and guys who are climbing the wall at El Cap on the movie Free Solo?
Free Solo? Yeah, that was free. Like, and, I was scared just sitting on the couch watching.
And you know, your amygdala can be obviously proven by science that it's more active in your day-to-day, or it's not as, you know, prevalent in your brain and your system and how you function. And he was a pretty clear proof that, oh wow, your amygdala is not firing like most people.
Yeah.
And you could climb this wall because you don't have that sense of fear that you're gonna fall and die. And I think a lot of like those extreme sports, like big wave surfing, or you know, the people who jump out of planes. I mean, also like badass frontline soldiers and stuff like that. And I mean, I would love for
There's
me
like other
to
emotions that overcome that fear, right? There's other things that are drivers that are more important in a lot of those situations, whether it's finding yourself, whether it's a protection, right? Like you mentioned the soldiers, like overcoming fear for a greater cause and protecting something that you really believe in, you know, that's a bigger driver than the fear, right? I mean, they're clearly afraid. I mean, have to be, right?
Unless your amygdala is not
fully
firing, there, yeah.
I don't know.
I think, like, I was raised, my dad, pretty big fear of failure guy. Like he said, I think he would relate to you, and I think like that financial drive and getting in that career path a little bit, like kind of instills this like fire that like, oh, you're going to get a sale. And if you get paid a lot of money for that sale, it's like, man, I got to make that. Like if I fail on my presentation or whatever, and I miss out on this small opportunity to cash in on like a year's worth of salary, like the higher pressure jobs that pay more, like, I don't know. Again, I don't have that experience. Like, I'm trying to wither away like that fear constant thought, and like just going for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't happen, like be present, that's done, way to go for it.
Yeah.
And self-talk your way through it. I mean, I was getting a little fearful about skydiving.
Mm-hmm.
I think once I press like the submit button, it's like no looking back.
Right.
The fear of failure was like a huge motivator for me. I even taught that to kids, and I don't know if that's like the healthiest way to go about it. I think for us, how you're raised, how you're wired, all factors
the
on
things
how
you had when you were growing up or didn't have when you were growing up drive people to go different directions and what becomes more important to them. I think my fear isn't even so much of failure. Like I don't necessarily think of, oh, I'm afraid to fail necessarily. I would say fear of disappointment in
like
others.
letting down.
Yeah, like letting somebody down. Like that's a bigger fear for me, right?
Well, it's kind of like failing in the relationship.
Totally. Yeah. Fear of failure in a relationship.
Yeah.
Totally. Letting somebody down that, you didn't want to let down. You're like, man, I'm really bummed that I let this person down. It sucks, right? I get anxiety about it sometimes where I'm like, man, did I totally screw this up? Whether it's, and luckily I built up enough goodwill with, people like you and others in my life, where, you kind of get a couple of freebies. You're like, ooh, I messed this one up, but I've done enough good and built enough loyalty with this person to, not have it really impact our relationship in a completely negative way. But yeah, that drives me a little bit. And sometimes I will overextend myself to make sure that people around me are taken care of and happy and whatever. And then other times I'll kind of clam back up and I'll just stay to myself and, kind of that fear will kind of consume sometimes, right? But usually it doesn't work out well when you clam up.
Yeah, if you're listening, I want you to kind of just take a second and think about anything that you've been kind of afraid of or hesitating to do or someone to talk to. It could be just getting on the phone and like ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And I think that's created like an answer of
so what's
rejection or no. And then to a certain extent, depending on the activity, like death would be on the extreme side. Yeah. So if you're a little more conservative, not jumping out of planes and playing golf or something, like, and you like go for it, what's the worst that can happen? And then are you okay with that result? And then are you going to be in the past and depressed? Are you going to be like proud that you went for it if it's something you really wanted?
Yeah.
And then are you going to be anxious about like future like backlash? Like if it's a relationship, are you going to, oh shoot, like this email might happen?
So what's something that you're going to do? What's something that you've kind of wanted to do but been a little bit afraid to do it? Do you have something that I'm trying to think right off the top of my head. I don't necessarily have something that I'm like, man, I really wanted to do this, but haven't for...
The skydiving was definitely something that was on the radar. So, I mean, that's like you could do it in one day. And
yeah.
I mean, that's definitely something though.
Yeah.
I think, like just approaching people, doesn't matter their gender, and just, I think I've gotten more comfortable with that.
Well, yeah, after I sent you that book, right? That book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, one of the great, dude, that book is so great.
Yeah, for those listening, you should definitely read How to Make Friends and Influence People.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's from the 60s. I mean, it's a super
old sales book that a
Well,
lot of sales training, I think,
but it
was pretty common. It's just
it's less salesy though, and more just be a better person.
Yeah.
Like one of the really good examples, I think, in our world, oftentimes when you approach somebody, you have a result that you want to attain from that. Whether it's, I'm going to go ask this, girl out, I think she's really pretty and I'd love to go on a date. Like there's a purpose behind it, right? Or I'm going to go meet with this person because they might help my career, or maybe I've got a sale that's potentially coming from this. And this book's like, well, just go up to somebody that you're never going to ever see again and give them a compliment that is completely true, but there's no purpose behind it other than to make that other person feel good. Like, wow, your shoes are awesome, your shirt's cool, your hair is really well done, your nails are really pretty, whatever. And I think it's a good habit to get in of like, I don't want anything from this person. I truly just want to make this person smile for a second.
Yeah, I think that's a good challenge to ourselves and everyone listening today, or whenever you listen to this podcast that day. Or that was a good pointer that you gave me, that I have an agenda and maybe use people and manipulate people, and then trying to figure out like, okay, like lose the agenda and just give a compliment.
Yeah.
And it starts making you feel good. Obviously, it's reciprocated most of the time pretty well.
Yeah.
And then you kind of develop those good habits where you're not just trying to get something out of whatever action or conversation you're having.
And I think inevitably, though, just doing that is going to lead to good things, right? Whether it's, oh, I met this person who's really good. I didn't expect anything. I just wanted to randomly give this person a compliment, and that person ends up paying it back somehow down the road. I think just being a good person
Totally
leads to really good things happening to you in life. I mean,
I hope we can all agree with that.
Yeah, I truly believe that.
We need to all try to be a good person and a better version of ourselves than how we entered, because we're around a lot of negative and bad, and
Yeah.
sifting that stuff out. And
kind of going back to loyalty, but I think it ties directly back into this. One of the brand loyalty, right? There's a brand called 10,000, and their motto is better than yesterday. And their other motto is, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I think both of those are really, really cool slogans and taglines, but like, how can you be better than you were yesterday? And what does that look like?
And just being here is enough.
Doing this podcast, I really think makes me better than I was yesterday. This is a completely new experience for me. I've never done it. I was actually a little nervous doing it. I was like, oh.
I think that's pretty common. Yeah, it's like I've gotten more comfortable doing it, setting it up, getting the cameras, and then if it's not the greatest show, that's okay.
Yeah.
If my camera breaks down, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we're doing it, and yeah, like you're like putting it off. It was kind of like the riding bikes in Amsterdam. We went to Amsterdam, and it's such a bike community. Tying this back in with an episode I had.
To put it in perspective, a bike community it's like the Daytona 500 of bike lanes.
Everyone's riding grandma bikes, and there's roads where people are not that crowded. Like you can ride through a crowded area,
but there's hundreds of people on bikes
going slowly on grandma bikes. I ended up venturing off, and the anxiety of what's the worst that's going to happen if you got on the bike?
I get run over.
You get run over. By a grandma bike.
I didn't do it. But now I also had.
So I'm glad you did the podcast. I'm glad you weren't so afraid of,
the podcast.
shit in the bed and forgetting how to talk to me on a live recording. That we could kind of hopefully, the theme here that I've been preaching is, and we'll go a little longer here and then get you down to the airport. Yeah. Is hopefully this resonates with like one person. Hopefully, whoever listens, if there's 10 listeners or 100 listeners or 1,000 listeners, one person's like,
not 1,000 listeners.
I didn't want to sell myself too short.
Not yet.
Yeah. If there's one person that's like starting to go up to another person and give them a compliment without an agenda, or someone's like,
or one person did something that they wouldn't have otherwise done, it's like, yeah, you know what? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? What's my fear, and how do I quell that fear? What psychologically can I tell myself that's going to make it so that I can overcome what I wasn't willing to do before, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be cool. I would love to hear about it if it's like, yeah, you know what? I actually went and did that, or I love that slogan. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Kind of sounds funky, but when you actually drill down and think about it, no change is going to come from you doing exactly what you've been doing. So if it's changing a workout, or if it's changing the way that you treat a partner, or if it's changing the way that you treat a friend, if you want something to change in your life, doing the same thing that you've continuously done is not how to accomplish that change. Yeah. I think I just like both of those. I actually have a Better Than Yesterday poster hanging up in my garage. Like every time I walk in there, I'm like, yeah, let's get a little workout in.
Seeking motivation daily or balancing that weekly motivation reminders are super important for, I think, myself. And if you start putting the motivation off to the side, you start changing in probably a way that for us, it's like, I don't want to go that way.
Right.
So yeah, you have that poster. I know my boss, Matt, 1% better. You know, it's like...
It's the Ravens slow. 1% better every day.
1% better. That's kind of, you know, better than yesterday. It's same thing, different wording.
And that can look different every day, right? It might be, hey, my body's telling me I really need a rest, or I need a day off of work, or whatever. It doesn't always have to be push forward, hardcore grind every day. It could be taking that rest day, or taking a day off work, or taking a little mini weekend getaway. Maybe that's going to help propel you next week to be more productive at work. Right? It doesn't.
It's not all a competitive race on who's going to retire the fastest and who makes the most money. And the self-care thing that I talked about, you know, I'm tapping more into that.
And it's overall wellness, not just physical wellness, but mental, spiritual,
giving
emotional.
Back to the world. I mean, we came in with nothing. Yeah. You know, we came in with nothing, and what your parents passed down or did not, and you just try to create for yourself, and then hopefully have that, hey, be a good person. You know, shout out to Kind Humans, trying to get Adam Instone or someone from Kind Humans on the show. And just the fact that we're here right now is super special. A lot of people have died recently with bombings and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, you know, being grateful is an attitude
in California.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, whenever you're up, and just gratitude for being here and having the life that we're super fortunate to share with each other has been super special. Last little thing, you guys know I'm vegan, I'm plant-based. The whole company's called a PlantBased Production. The podcast that you've been listening to is Into the Blue Zone. I'm going to be starting a running group with a mindfulness breathing teaching, hopefully helped out by my friend Marcelo Gatis. And we're going to run Neptune Ave in Leucadia. So I'm a little hesitant on trying that. Mm-hmm. Growing the brand, I'm a little afraid of putting money into my own company without seeing return right away. So I think going back to the question that I didn't answer and kind of let it marinate a little bit. Yeah. I think being afraid of putting money into myself and then it not working, and that's kind of the idea machinist. We'll keep doing it if you have the capital. Yeah. You know, do it, and then it's you know, at some point, if you keep working hard and you stay with it, it seems like something pans around. So, yeah, it's been a great podcast sharing. I'm super proud of you for cleaning up your diet quite a bit. I think for those who don't know Josh too well, Josh was, could I say a meathead? Is that just a generic label?
Call me whatever you want.
Big gym guy, big meat eater.
Yeah.
You know, just to simplify it.
Yeah.
You know, you've evolved into the surfer a little bit, playing golf. You know, you're still super putting up weight in the gym, still working out a ton. He's going to start his own brand, Marty's Bodies. You bought a ton of gym equipment. Mm-hmm. Just share a little bit. Last thing. Yeah. I think people tend to feel or listen to and remember towards the end of the podcast what the last thing was on the show. So I'm saving the best for last.
Perfect.
What have been kind of the biggest changes in, not that you're transitioned to a plant-based diet, to really clarify for the listeners, going from eating more processed foods and a lot of meat to being mindful of, wow, I'm eating a lot of meat and now I'm eating a lot of whole foods. Mm-hmm. What experiences have you noticed?
I mean, I would say first, I was never a really big guy. I was relatively in shape. But during COVID, I lost 14 pounds. Started doing Huel, which is a completely plant-based meal alternative that has a lot of whole food ingredients in there. It's a shake. So I started doing that for lunch every day, which was great. And then probably 3-4 times a week, I'll do a completely plant-based day, and then I'll kind of treat myself to, fish, or sometimes definitely a nice steak or chicken or whatever. But so I would start by saying I lost 14 pounds. I think being much more mindful about eating, we've used that term a couple of times over the last couple of weeks and beyond, but mindful eating, being conscious of when you're eating and what you're eating and what the purpose is behind that, right? So a good example is so many people when you finish a workout are just like, oh, I'm going to shove a bunch of protein into my body, right? Which is great. That's how you build lean muscle mass, is protein after the muscle fibers have been broken down. But what a lot of people don't realize is having some carbohydrate, like fruit, right before a workout is going to make your workout so much more productive. And then on the tail end, making sure you refill your body with different carbohydrates. Otherwise, that protein is going to be absorbed by the body as an energy source rather than to continue to build lean muscle mass. So I would say, just walking around 10 to 15 pounds lighter is great. I've started running a lot more. Bought a bike, so I've overcome that fear of cycling around. Bought a bike, which was great. Got my personal training certificate. So just trying different things. I was a little nervous about doing it, and I think probably one of the reasons I haven't started training anybody, I kind of use like I'm busy as an excuse. I think we all do, but I'm probably a little nervous about just like starting to train somebody.
Failing in like,
yeah,
I don't know how to start.
Failing this person.
And then like, what happens if no one shows up for the first lesson?
Yeah. I mean,
what happens if one person shows up? It's like, man, this sucks. And
well, if one person shows up, I would actually view that as a positive, right? I got my personal training certificate because some of the things I don't get at work are helping others. I do help others in their career, but I'm generally helping companies to succeed and be better and, close the gap on different things that they have from an accounting standpoint. But really helping individual people change their life, I think is so cool. So being a personal trainer, watching somebody drop 10, 20, 30 pounds and gain a new level of confidence and overcome fears that maybe they didn't have the confidence to do before, and helping people to change their diet. Like, you've changed so many people's lives for the better, helping them with diet and volleyball or whatever. Like, you've got that very much that one-on-one, I've helped this person to become a little bit better. So I wanted to jump into that and do a little bit, and that fear of disappointing people, I think, is one of the reasons I probably haven't done it yet. And the longer it passes, the longer it's like, okay, maybe it's not a big deal to do right now or whatever. Yeah. Like I was 18 when I got my driver's license. Super random fact. 17 or 18, I was like, all right, every month that passed that I didn't go and take the test or whatever, I was like, all right, I'm a little bit like, it goes further out, becomes like, do I need it? Nah, I don't really need it. So
it's like fear of failing the driving test. I did the same thing.
That was exactly
I failed written by one question. I think I got like a 76 or 78. And it was super discouraging. I overthink it.
Yeah.
And it was like such an easy test looking back on it. And like, I'm like overthinking questions. And then time goes by and you don't want to take it again because you're like, man, I'm not ready for that result of failing. And then the fear of failure motivates you. You study a little harder and you pass it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
All right, so that's mine though. You said yours is kind of starting this, starting to expand a little bit, doing like whatever you want. The first and final of
first and finals is what it's going to be called. It's going to be Friday mornings.
The runs and
you're going to meet at my house or at Lucadia Park. We're going to go for a run, maybe an ocean dip depending on weather and kind of the vibe with the group. And then we're going to talk about nutrition and do some breath work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
so.
those are like
you're going to do that.
Three essential things.
Yeah.
Good nutrition, running, and breathing.
Yeah.
So hopefully I attract more than one person, even if it's just one person.
So yours is that. Mine's going to be this next month. I'm going to take on somebody and start training.
Okay, so let's make a pact
to
the
live.
Listeners.
And it's recorded.
To the listeners that I said to our friend Evan, my first event will be by Halloween. So that's 2 months away. I feel like that's pretty generous. I have some priorities. I think you got to hold me to that.
Yeah.
And then what do you think you could develop, even if it's just something maybe like an email or...
No,
I mean, for me, it's a little more, I think, present. Like I'm doing things right now and I've been...
Let's come up with little... I like to do little mini goals, right?
What's a mini goal? Give me a mini goal.
Mini goal. So...
I need some goals.
Your end goal is you want to start this club that has, let's just say 50 people in it, and you've got this run club and it's great, and you've got all these followers and you've got this community that is involved, that's kind of a middle to longer term goal. The short term goal would be, okay, how do I get to that end? Is it starting a Facebook group or an Instagram group? Is
sending out
an email? These little mini checklist type goals. And by the time you get through those 10 little mini goals, checklists, you'll be ready to attempt to, finalize that middle range or long-term goal. I think and a lot of people have the end. They're like, yeah, I know I want to do this, but how do I get there? How do I set these little goals that are going to help me position myself for success to get to that end target, right?
Take action. Embrace change. Do the things you can control without the thought of the worst thing happening.
For help.
And then the fear
Ask
of
for
like
help.
if it doesn't. Yeah, and if you're
getting other people to help you accomplish these goals, like leaning on your network.
I'm doing that. I'm trying to build a team because it's really hard for me to stay motivated and to be a photographer and this and that. And you should do whatever it is that you're thinking.
Yeah.
Because you attract all those good vibrations, and it was very obvious being out here, going to random nights, and hanging out. So hopefully that fear subsides, and I want you to take that getting started step with what, and you did it. You bought a house, you're furnishing the house. So I think you have an awesome home base without any extra expenses. And you do it in your garage, and Marty's Bodies, you got the name. You just got to throw a name on it, right? COVID. Just throw a name on it.
Yeah.
Coronavirus. Shut the world down. Yeah. Anyways, you should. Just throw a name on it. You should start Marty's Bodies. It's a great name. Yeah. And I think you'll get so much out of it. I could see you with like the 80s leotards and bright colors, and the headphone. Like, come on, people, let's go. Let's go. Shit, man. Sergeant Motter. It's like boot camp, except you're way more fun and enjoyable to be around.
It'd be more fun. I would put.
You should go for it.
Yeah, I should.
I'm gonna keep going for it too. This is a good reminder.
Perfect.
Dude, love you, buddy.
Love you, bud.
So good. Thanks for all those listening. It's time
I didn't
to.
Look at the camera almost once this entire time.
That's good. That's good. I just dabbled.
Eye contact.
Yeah. So. Thanks for listening to another episode of Into the Blue Zone. You can listen free on Spotify. Again, this is a sponsorship-free, unedited, unscripted podcast. And if you like the show, please feel free to donate any amount, $1, $5, $10, $20, to my Venmo account at Skylar Heyman. Again, I'm trying to keep it sponsorship-free as long as possible. We'll see if we can keep that up. Thank you so much for listening. Josh, love you, man. Have a safe flight, and so glad you came out here.
Appreciate it, brother.